This is Rudy Giuliani, and this is America's Mayor Live. And today we had another unusual, exciting, and a day in which we've made even further strides toward changing this country and getting it back to the great constitutional republic based on law that we have been for so long, that we're the glory of the world. And we saw a president get up in front of an international group and defend our way of living and our way of thinking and our beliefs that have made them far more successful than any of them. Now, that doesn't have to be said in a hostile way, and it doesn't have to be said in an arrogant way. It's a matter of fact. It's the reason why we're beset by immigration, or in some cases, aided by it. And there's no question that, but for the make-believe bishop in Washington, when Donald Trump talks about immigration, he is a great and strong advocate of legal immigration, as I am, and I'm sure most of you. And he is equally an opponent of illegal immigration. Why, in the name of you know who, would we want illegal people? Would we want people to come in here illegally? Don't we want them to start, if we're going to grant them the privilege of being an American? Don't we want them to start with respect for our laws? I mean, they also are going to have to show us that they agree on the basics of America, or we can't have a country. That's all we are. We're a country of principles. We're not one ethnic group. We're not one religious group. We don't have a
EU treats us.
Thank God we still have a common language. I hope we keep it. Otherwise, we're not going to keep our sovereignty. But why would we want to elevate illegal immigration over legal? We just had an invasion of more illegals than came in illegally through Ellis Island in 60 years. So I want you just to sit back and take that in. Well over 12 million people came in under Biden because nobody's counting the ones we never saw. Not the gotaways. We see the gotaways. We write them down. It's the ones you never see that are brought in those vast spaces between the checkpoints. Those are very large numbers. They used to be acknowledged when we were an honest government, but we stopped that when Biden took over. And the calculation always was, from Ivy League schools, that for every person that comes in illegally that we record, then you have to add 50 to 200% to that, depending on the conditions. So let's add 50%. That would mean we're at about 15 million. In 60 years, 12 million people came into Ellis Island legally. So when I say this was an invasion, which I've been saying from the very beginning, when Biden first said that everybody should come to the border and everybody should come in, yeah, it's an invasion. It's one of the greatest invasions in human history in a short period of time. And I don't know that we're going to understand the full impact of this until a few years from now. But we're definitely starting to minimize it. On the first day, second day, we started deporting people all over the country from sanctuary cities, completely disregarding that stupidity of a sanctuary city. Stupidity, illegality of a sanctuary city. I don't know. These people don't understand the supremacy clause of the United States Constitution. Didn't we fight a civil war over that? Isn't that what happened when Eisenhower and Kennedy used troops to allow the schools to be desegregated? The state said, no, we have our own laws of segregation. Yeah, but the Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional. The law of the land is that children are not going to have separate but equal education. They're going to be put in the same schools based on neutral principles. Several states said no, and the United States troops went down and put them in. George Wallace threatened, like the mayor of Denver The mayor of Denver said, I'll stand at the entrance to the city. I don't know if there really is an entrance to Denver, but let him pick the little sign that says you're now in Denver. And Tom Homan said, great, you'll be the first one I arrest. You're looking back at George Wallace standing in front of the school, not wanting to allow black children in, and the United States Marshals or National Guard, in some cases, just went right past him, like he didn't exist. And they put those black children in there, and the damn thing was over. And yeah, we have states' rights, but then we have to eventually have a united country, a union, and that's why we have the supremacy clause. And really, that got resolved with the Civil War. Mayor of Denver and all you other Democrats, you're doing like what you did in the Civil War when you were the party of slavery. You were on that side then. You're on that side now. You really are a decrepit political party, a disgrace to the country. And hopefully it's going to be renamed and reconstituted with patriots, of which there are many, just not the ones presently in charge of it. They're the furthest from that. President Trump today made it pretty clear that he thinks that Joe Biden should be investigated. He's the only guy that wasn't pardoned, right, in the Biden crime family. If you ever need any other indication that they did it, I mean, the fact is that according to the Supreme Court, in order for a pardon to be effective, you have to accept it. When you accept it, there's a implication that you're guilty and that you are acknowledging your guilt. Well, of course you're guilty. We got the external proof. The problem is that, unfortunately, as Republicans, we just picked the wrong guy to do the investigation. And I think his horrible book sort of illustrates a Coomer. I mean, the guy had 4 years and he couldn't get Biden impeached. I mean, the evidence is staring him in the face. But now that you read the book, he never found it, even though it was given to him. He writes a book that's like, it's sort of like Kamala Harris. They can't go from here to here. Now, big question. Did any money go from Hunter Biden to Joe Biden that related to the money Hunter Biden was collecting from all these governments, which clearly was income to Hunter? Ooh, I don't know. How do you miss the I guess it's an email, the email of December 25, 2018, from Hunter to his daughter saying, I gave 50% of my income for 30 years to Pop. How do you miss that? I mean, he writes page after page after page of useless prose described by one reviewer as turgid. And when you read it, you understand why he failed. The guy doesn't have a relevant mind. He's got it's right there. I mean, it's right sitting there for him to read, and he can't read it. I don't know what's wrong with him. So they go through all sorts of permutations and combinations to try to show that money went to Joe, and Hunter Biden has written it out. 50% of my income for 30 years went to Pop. That is, now I'm a lawyer. I don't think he is. And if he is, he should give his law degree back. These are things you have to do, but I don't think too many people in Congress, you got to read. I know that's tough, but there's something called the hearsay rule. And there's something called an exception to the hearsay rule, of which there are 48, 49. It's like the exceptions are very often law professors of evidence will say the exceptions eat up the rule. They don't even know why we have the rule anymore. Not true, actually. I mean, there are things that are excluded on hearsay, but there are 5 classic exceptions to the hearsay rule. The one that he missed is obviously one of the classic and probably the most often utilized one. It's called admission. Admission either by a party opponent, admission against interest, or admission by a co-conspirator, which is really the critical one, because that's exactly what Hunter Biden was. If you understand the RICO statute, Kuma Kumba, you obviously don't understand it, and you screwed up the investigation with that, and you left President Trump completely unprotected because you're fighting with the people that are most loyal to him. You say horrible things about people I really regard very, very highly. Uh, how about this? All 6 of my surprise Republican committee additions, by the way, who are all MAGA Republicans, just to prove to be productive at times, but unfortunately, mostly disruptive. Look, you couldn't even get the most important piece of evidence, and you're calling them disruptive? The damn thing was stuck in your face from the day that I found the hard drive, not you. You don't even understand the damn hard drive. How about that? You missed maybe the 3 most important pieces of evidence on that hard drive. Hunter Biden's admission, Joe Biden's audio recording admitting he knew about the foreign business deals in China. Sure, all the pictures, the testimony, that's great. But how about a video recording in which Joe admits it, which you can't figure out because it requires putting 2 rational thoughts together, which you are incapable of because you want to be interviewed so damn often and attack people. All 6 of my surprise Republican committee additions proved to be productive at times, but unfortunately mostly disruptive. I lost count of the number of committee hearings I had where Lauren Boebert and MTG tangled, or where Anna Paulina Luna made some crazy non-germane motion. What the hell is he doing fighting with the Republicans? You didn't make the case, jerk off. They weren't chairman of the committee. I bet if they were, I know all 3 of them. I bet they would have made the case. They got courage. You don't. You hid the most damaging emails. What? Because you're stupid? Or because you're afraid? Or because you shoot your mouth off so much you don't pay attention? I don't know. But stop your attacks on other people. You're responsible. Take responsibility for the fact that you could not produce a report that compelled impeachment and that hard drive easily by a second-year law student could be used for that. It's like my commission case. I used to say all you need is a disc jockey for that case. Play the tapes of Fat Tony. Play the tapes of Persico. Here, play Joe on tape saying he knew all about China. I don't even see you mentioned it in your book. How are you going to use that to get the American people on your side so we can compel an impeachment? Instead, you're fighting with Lorraine Boebert and Anna Paulina Luna, who made some crazy non-germane motion, or where a combination of the 3 got into a heated exchange with several of the female oversight Democratic members like AOC, Jasmine Crockett, or Rashida Tlaib over ridiculous things ranging from fake eyelashes to butch bodies to fat butts. Yes, they really did disparage each other that bad, much like some middle school female drama. Maybe the guy can't work with women. Maybe he can't work with women. Ted, you want to look at that to make sure I read it right? That's a outs. That explains to you. That explains to you why. Actually, not that I want to sell his book, but if you read the book, you're going to realize why he didn't make the case. Look, I've investigated thousands of cases, considerably more complicated than the Biden case. I hired 1,000 lawyers, some of the best in the country, some of whom have turned out to be like Comey.
Mayor, not to mention this reads like someone who's a former member of Congress. I mean, isn't he supposed to be a leader out there? And he's writing about this in his books.
I think he realizes he failed, so he's got to blame it on the three women on the committee. Or I mean, he goes on with Gates, and obviously he doesn't like the most loyal Republicans to Trump. But I mean, all throughout the investigation, Ted and I used to go nuts when we listened to him, because the guy misses the point. I'm telling you, if you miss Hunter Biden's admission that he gave half of the money to his father for 30 years, if you do that and you're an assistant U.S. attorney, Coomer, you get fired by me, who actually prosecuted cases and convicted criminals that are a lot more difficult to do than this Biden case, which would be probably one of the easiest ones that I ever prosecuted. The evidence is overwhelming. And because it's overwhelming, you miss the most relevant evidence. It's sad. It really is sad. And now you strike it out at other people. Get out of the way. Biden should be investigated, and even if he can't be prosecuted because he's insane or whatever the hell he is, all the facts have got to come out. The guy was involved in the biggest corruption of our government in the history of this country in so many different ways. The amount of money is scandalous. 40 million, 50 million. Even worse than that, the money was coming from our enemies. I mean, you write about it like, China wants to destroy us. And he took, even by your ridiculously incompetent counting, 10 million or so from China. It's actually 31 million at least. Ukraine, you're also wrong because you obviously didn't pay attention to the witnesses the FBI didn't investigate, like the woman who could have led to the Trump offshore bank accounts. What the hell did they interview her for? It's like the FBI, you never interviewed her. I don't know. There's something strange. I always thought there was something strange about the investigation because it made a lot of promises and never seemed to focus on the most relevant evidence. Why didn't you call Joe Biden as a witness? You do point out that that Hunter got $5 million from China after he called his Chinese counterpart. I think the chief spy of China, whoever the hell was on the other end of the phone. But he threatened him that his father, the former vice president, would come down very hard on him and said that his father was with him. Well, they deny that, right? Why didn't you call Joe Biden? What, afraid to call the president? Shouldn't Joe Biden be asked if he was there at that conversation when they got the $5 million and Joe got part of that money? And Joe would also then fit into I gave 50% of my income to my father. That was part of Hunter's income. All those payments were part of Hunter's income. And doesn't that statement, I gave 50% of my income to my father, kind of make sense and pull the whole conspiracy together? I mean, for years, people are saying, why would any of these people give money to Hunter Biden? Well, they weren't giving money to Hunter Biden. The Chinese communists are not stupid. Ms. Budarina from Russia is far from stupid. She's the richest woman in Russia, and she's very close to Putin, and she's about the only Russian close to Putin that has escaped sanctions from one Joe Biden, to whom we caught her giving $3.5 million. By the way, I didn't have the power of subpoena, and I didn't have the ability to. I put the whole damn case together without that. With people in your body, the Congress, refusing to cooperate with me, particularly in the Senate, because they didn't want to hurt a fellow senator, even though he's a traitor and a crook. I abhor, hate incompetence when it's important that you be competent. He really hurt us. And he shouldn't hurt the effort to now investigate and get someone who can, read emails or look at the law that would have put that piece of evidence in as a blockbuster piece of evidence. You don't often get admissions from a co-conspirator. You certainly don't often get them in writing, which is what an email is. That, by the way, was verified about 1,000 times before eventually it was acknowledged after 17 months to have been verified. You didn't do a damn thing about the 51 spies who lied. Not a damn thing. President just did something. He took away their security clearance. You didn't do anything about it. That was a heck of a thing to pursue, how that all came about. Where was Blinken testifying about that? Where was Leon Panetta testifying about how he lied in writing? Why weren't they required to explain how it is that they thought that the hard drive, based on one day's analysis, never seeing it, never asking any questions about it, had earmarks of Russian collusion? And if it had earmarks of Russian collusion, why didn't they pick one as an example? Why don't you call all 51 of them? Or maybe there'd be perjury cases that could be made now. Maybe somebody should do it now. They're committing perjury now isn't covered by a pardon. And they don't have a Fifth Amendment privilege. So let's see. But let's have somebody other than you do the investigation. We don't screw it up again, please. What do you think, Ted? Well, I mean, you were ahead of me on this, I have to say. You picked it out right at the beginning. You said, could this goofball really do it?
That's right, Mayor. And you were right to give him a chance, right? I mean, he was elected by his constituents, and he seemed at first, I mean, he was saying the right things, but then over time, and I believe you've read most of the book at this point. He even lays out how
Too bad
he exposes himself for how he fails.
It's easy to read. I don't know what level it's at, but certainly not at the level of a serious book. But in any event, it's easy to read. I mean, you can read through it.
And now it's making sense now why this committee, I don't believe they've ever officially reached out to you. I haven't heard from them. Don't you think a committee that was actually looking for the truth on this, and it's getting late. I mean, Biden's out of office now. But don't you think anyone really looks would come to you, even behind the scenes? I'm not saying it had to be a big public thing.
I always had a suspicion, but I don't know. I don't know if this is true. It may not be. That there was a certain fear of pressing too hard, which is why they never called Biden. I certainly wouldn't have any fear of that.
Of course not. Look what.
But I was confronted with. So at first, Coomer seemed better to me. I was confronted with Congress people who didn't want to do anything. They were afraid. They literally told me to my face they were afraid. I'd bring them a 150-page analysis of the case. And first of all, I realized I better get it down to 2 pages. You think, I mean, most of them don't read. I'm sorry. I pride myself on telling the truth. You give them 150 pages, you might be able to burn it.
So here we have Comer comes along.
I read half his book and then skimmed the rest of it because I was going on the air. And I read half his book in about 25 minutes. I'll read the other half before I go to bed tonight. I'll probably understand it better than him when I finish it.
Well, of course.
What I realize is, as a professor, I could tell you it gets an F. It doesn't follow any logical thought pattern. because I don't think he has the talent to do it, which is how he misses. I give you a lot more key evidence that he missed, but I give you the three easiest ones. He misses completely the admission that 50% went to the father, which I don't know how much I don't know how much you can lay any kind of blame on the other members because of the way he criticizes them. He seems to be laying it off on the most Republican of the members.
Funny.
What the hell's going on there? I don't know. I don't know how he can have objections to Anna or Marjorie Taylor Greene, or if he's a Republican. I understand how the Democrats defame them, but I don't know what the hell he's doing that for.
Even if you had issues,
it seems like he has issues with. It seems like he has issues with women.
It does, but even I mean, what a baby! He instead of like if he had issues with these members, why not talk with them, talk it through, figure something out? He writes about it in a book.
How does he expect that other members of Congress are going to cooperate with him when he pisses on them?
Oh, bingo! What is his end game here? But I know you wanted to mention some other issues with the
Marjorie might punch him out.
She's tough. I wouldn't mess
with
my
money on her instead of him. Well, how about the fact that he screwed up the whole thing with the Smirnov testimony, right?
Right.
So Smirnov is it sort of reminds me of on what Shifty Shiv did with the whistleblower in the Ukrainian case.
Right.
He said the whistleblower said that Trump did a quid pro quo with Zelensky. Then when you read the transcript, there's no quid pro quo at all. There's no money involved. The money doesn't. The idea of money for Ukraine doesn't come up for much later, so it couldn't have been part of the conversation. It wasn't. Trump never forced him. Trump never extorted him. Trump asked him in a very gentle way to look into this. And of course, had the hard drive not been concealed at the time by the head of the FBI and Barr, which Coomer doesn't even seem to recognize in his book, had it not been concealed, Trump would have had 100% defense, because the hard drive makes it clear that there was serious corruption at the highest levels of both governments, where any president would be required to ask a new president of a country to investigate. By the way, Zelensky didn't. And Zelensky has covered up the whole damn thing also, which put him in a perfect position to extort a dodo bird in the White House, because he has all the goods on him. Look, he's got more evidence than I have, considerably more evidence that Coomer has but doesn't even understand. He got the whole thing. I got them a portion of it with the hard drive. Coomer didn't get the hard drive. He wouldn't know how to do it. I got the hard drive. Not only that, I put it out and took the heat for it. Sad case. And what a mistake putting it in his hands.
Right.
But I don't know who else was available. Geez, they are so disappointing. Did he ever subpoena, for example, this they may have done, but I'd like the answer to it. You don't find it in the book. Did they ever subpoena the original purchase of the Joe Biden mansions? I mean, how does Joe Biden get to buy these things when his salary, was in the $100,000 range and his wife was a school teacher?
Yeah.
I mean, how does he get to buy these mansions? They never put in the record the observations of the daughter-in-law, who says that when she went into one of the homes, Hunter had described it as a home. It was a mansion.
Yeah.
And the daughter-in-law couldn't understand how they had so many mansions. That doesn't interest Coomer. So if you are an investigator and a good investigator, first thing you do is you subpoena all those records.
Right.
Who paid for them? Who paid for it? Or at the very beginning of his book, I almost dropped it when I saw that his standard here is Bob Woodward. He says in the book that Bob Woodward is a legendary reporter and very honest. Now, if you know Washington, you know that he is a legendary reporter, but the last thing Bob Woodward is honest. Every book he writes, he lies. He lies in order to sell it. He puts 3 or 4 things in that are totally untrue, so it will be sensational. And then he goes on television and talks about the 3 or 4 things that are untrue. And then he tries to sell his book, and the publisher goes along with it because most of the publishers do that. That's why most of the books are shitty. And the 3 or 4 things they add to it are very often either completely exaggerated forms of the truth or completely fictional. When I first went to Washington, which goes back to right after he and that other character who also has a reputation mainly for being a liar, Bernstein, they used to say that the expression "a source close to the White House" was developed by, this is the young Bob Woodward, the source close to the White House was somebody who would tell him something, would sit at a bench near the White House so he could tell his editor that he had 2 sources. But I'm not talking about going back to that. It's way long ago. I'm telling you from his presidential books. Every single one of them has tactical lies in it intended to sell the book. Now, interestingly, Coomer's model for investigating is Woodward, who he should have known as a guy in Washington is a big liar. But Woodward says that Coomer lied about him in the book. But Coomer says that his quotations and the things attributed are completely 100% false. Now, I actually tend to think that Coomer is probably telling the truth and Woodward is lying. But who knows? I don't have any sense necessarily that Coomer is a liar. He sure is a lightweight, but he's not a liar, I don't think. But that's what his hero, Woodward, says. Now he doesn't like Woodward anymore. Now he said something about shove it up your backside or something very graceful about Woodward, which I agree with, Coomer. You and I both agree that whatever Bob Woodward said should be shoved up, you know what.
Yeah.
But in any event, I always knew that because I'm a hell of a lot smarter than you are. So are a lot of people.
Clearly.
Which was the sad thing to give you this. It's way over your. This is way over your head. So have a little humility and stop attacking people, huh? Stop attacking your supposedly your people on your side. You did a lot of damage. You did a lot of damage because a lot was expected of you and little was delivered. And that hurt President Trump. That you really couldn't back it up with what you did because you missed, I told you, you missed the most important evidence. And as days go by, I'll point out more of it as we make the case against Biden. And I'll note for you what he left out of the book. I've only had a chance to read it for an hour. And I found, I'd say about 15 holes in it. But I've given you the 3 top ones. 1, Hunter Biden complying with the exception to the hearsay rule by making an admission of powerful dimension that explains the entire RICO conspiracy, which is that he gave half of his income to his father, which explains the whole thing, doesn't it? It explains why they gave him the money. It explains why they would take on a guy like Hunter Biden, who was a degenerate addict. All during this period, he was going in and out of drug rehabilitation. And every time he'd go into a drug rehabilitation center, he'd set up prostitutes and drugs for himself. So what kind of rehabilitation is that? And who would hire him? These are extraordinarily conniving, smart, brilliant people. Crooked as hell. That's all they dealt with was crooks. He doesn't bother to point out that his financial company that the red Chinese government pledged $1.5 billion to, right after the old man took him over on Air Force Two to China. He doesn't point out that partnership included Whitey Bulger's nephew. I don't know. You don't think that's relevant? That the nephew of a member of organized crime was part of that? I mean, that alone would keep any legitimate institution from investing $2 in it, much less $1.5 billion. But China didn't invest 1.5 billion in that to get Hunter Biden services. What? They need the they know plenty about fentanyl and drugs. They don't need him to tell them about it. On the other hand, they can now say it was a hell of a good investment since we got America out of the Bagram Air Base. As soon as that weasel trader, his father, got in office, he signed off on an air base 400 miles from us that used to scare the shit out of us. He signed off on leaving it. Oh, he also helpfully left $85 billion worth of arms behind. And now, you know who runs the airbase? China. Not connected to the millions that Biden got. You know, there is this I never expect Coomer to understand. There is something called circumstantial evidence, which every good prosecutor utilizes constantly in putting a conspiracy together. Very rarely do you get a statement as direct as what Hunter did. But even before Hunter's statement, we had the case based on circumstantial evidence and some very, very powerful documents also ignored. The money laundering transaction from Ukraine to Latvia, Latvia to Cyprus, Cyprus to America, 3.4 million on paper, revealed just at the time that they were firing Shogun. With a little side note that 800 grand went to Joe.
Well, why wouldn't this committee even privately?
Why don't they censure him for having screwed up the investigation? Well, that's probably too much.
Yeah.
But I mean, the way he treats his colleagues, I mean, that somebody should do something about that.
Something needs to be said about that.
I don't know how the hell he's going to I mean,
these are strong members. Anna Paulina Luna is like a 20-something-year-old woman who's doing the Lord's work in the House. And what's he doing trashing her?
Three of the most loyal people to the president of the United States.
We know MTG, she's loyal as they come.
And has had to take enormous shit.
And Lauren Boebert.
From the Yeah.
Well, what is he doing trashing these three? They get enough. They get enough charge from the left.
They weren't in charge of the investigation. I seriously doubt he let anybody touch it but him. I wonder if the members of the committee will start opening up on him.
And he puts those three members in the same paragraph as Rashida Tlaib and AOC.
Yeah, as if they're moral equivalents.
Yeah, right. Just the placement of those three in that same paragraph to me.
They're debating women's issues or women's minor issues or whatever, frivolous issues, somehow interfered with his ability to make the case.
Well, this is the most coverage this book is getting, and I know we're not.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason we haven't seen much on this, I think, is because the book's not doing so well. But I do hope, I hope this brought to some people's attention.
The book illustrates, however, why the investigation failed and why there's a reluctance to pick up another investigation of this. The book doesn't do any damage. I mean, it's just a book.
Yeah.
The book is an illustration of, it answers for me why he screwed up so much. Let's put it that way. But the real problem is that he screwed up so much. And therefore, he leaves even Republicans reluctant to take this up again, because theoretically he did a horrible job. I mean, he was much more anxious to. He even says he wanted to go on CNN. He was looking forward to his relationship with CNN, and I don't know what the hell's wrong with him. He's like crazy.
He lost the governor's race in 2015.
Well, that was smart.
By 70 votes. The primary. He lost the Republican primary in Kentucky by 70 votes. So a very close race. And maybe if he won that damn thing, we wouldn't have to deal with it.
Maybe there wouldn't be a Democratic governor in Kentucky. Isn't there a Democratic governor?
There is, and that came out.
That's a disaster.
Yeah. So Comer lost that.
Kentucky.
And then, but maybe if he won that, he would have stayed in Kentucky. We wouldn't have to deal with them with this. Look, I think he was in over his head. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, Mayor. The best that can be said. And this isn't.
This is better than.
And you know Kentucky, by the way. You can talk about it.
Oh yeah, I ran a company in Kentucky for 3 years as a receiver in bankruptcy for the federal court.
How long were you there?
Well, I was there on and off for 3 years. I didn't live there. I went back and forth.
But you know, you got some roots there.
But I spent weeks there. I got them out of,
Gee.
by the way, I succeeded. I got them out of bankruptcy.
Gee, I wonder who has a higher approval rating in that part of Kentucky, James Comer or Mayor Rudy Giuliani. All I got to say is we went to rural Ohio, which isn't far, and man, were you warmly received. I went to East Palestine, Ohio.
Oh,
and
yeah,
were you
yeah.
warmly received? Which was for me, it was just so interesting, right? The mayor of New York City coming to small town America, and they loved you.
You know, I do have to go on to a different subject for a moment that also outrages me, and those are the pardons that Biden gave. I mean, I know. First of all, his family, we've taken that up, and that's really got to be dealt with. We got to overcome Coomer and his terrible investigation. Throw it aside. It won't be Coomer anymore. They'll appoint a really very, very competent. And we got plenty on the Republican side, competent prosecutors. Who, I mean, you give this to a competent prosecutor with a grand jury subpoena, you can rip this thing open in 4 months, 3 months. And there are about 10 different ways to go in the racketeering case against Joe Biden. And by the way, there's still the possibility, although a difficult one, I don't want to explain why, it'll just take too long, to do a civil racketeering case against the ones who have been pardoned. They're not pardoned from civil proceedings. They can still be proceeded against civilly. But that would almost have to be a private suit. A private individual would have to bring it. And then under the Ketam statute, maybe the government could take it. I'm getting a little too technical. But these are the things that Jackass didn't know. Why it was a mistake. And I don't know why he didn't have a good enough counsel to teach him the hearsay rule. But in any event, Biden just didn't pardon people like that. He pardoned pedophiles. He pardoned Adrian Peeler, who was convicted in the slaying of Leroy B.J. Brown, 8 years old, and the mom, Karen Clark. This guy got clemency from Joe Biden. You're going to be free. You're going to be free. Oswald Clark, Karen Clark's brother, said the following. Here's the little boy. Want to see a picture of the little boy? That's the mom that this guy killed. There's the little boy that this guy killed. And Jackass below there, the crookedest president in American history. There got to be a story behind this. Somebody got money for this. I got to be. Yes. One of those crooked members of the Biden crime family or his associates around him must have gotten money for this. But Karen's brother, the woman who was killed by this animal, says, we've been blindsided. Where is the justice for my family? It's like we are hearing of BJ and Karen deaths all over again, but this time their killer is going free. Even Democrats were shocked. It seems to me that someone dropped the ball here to let this person get released, said Democrat Senator Richard Blumenthal. Yeah, Richard Blumenthal. That's a real piece of work. And his reaction to it is someone dropped the ball and a killer goes out. He's still thinking about his fictitious military activity in Vietnam, where he never was, but just lied about it. What the hell he's doing in the Senate is really hard to figure. Right. Richard Blumenthal.
Da Nang Dick.
What the hell is wrong with that party? What about Tampon Tim, Richard Blumenthal? John Kerry, who brings the camcorder with him to Vietnam.
Oh, that's right.
And then comes back and trashes our troops.
Yeah.
And then gets all insulted about the Swift boat thing, which was absolutely accurate, only brought about by the fact that the troops hate him.
How about our favorite governor? I don't want to call him our favorite governor, but I hope he never leaves office because then we won't be able to use this clip.
Who?
Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Prospero año.
many people dead in Colorado. That guy's responsible for all the people dead in Colorado. He didn't think Trans de Aragua was in Colorado.
Well, Tren de Aragua members just show each other that video and say, "Come on up, come to Colorado. This is the guy leading the state."
Absolutely. They must, in the prisons in Venezuela and in Colombia, because a lot of them are in Colombia in prison, and they must have sent that around. So that's the place to go. We'll go to New York because it's sanctuaries, uber sanctuary city. But then we'll go to Colorado because we got jerk off there. He'll never be able to deal with us. And if he does, we'll scare him. We'll start crying.
That's right.
All you got to do is you take a brief look at somebody and you can see that they're weaklings and stupid and crazy. And Colorado is such a disaster. I don't know. I'm not sure I'd even drive through because you'd have to, I don't have any hair anymore, so it doesn't affect me too much. But marijuana stays in your hair. And that's how they test for marijuana. They take some of your hair. And the cops around de Blasio refused to protect him because he and his wife used to smoke so much marijuana in my old home, Crazy Mansion.
Oh.
And the police commissioner, who will not admit this, just exempted them from random drug testing. Otherwise, he couldn't have had a security detail for that communist, de Blasio. That's quite a bit of piece of public service, huh? Well, we'll be right back after this very interesting group of commercials, which are enormously important to us because this is how we survive and eat, or try to at least.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast.
To celebrate the new year, we're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50% and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited
The Tunnel of the Towers Foundation delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. John is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnels of Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please. So we're going to conclude that subject, but we'll have to go back to it because it's very important that we do an investigation of Biden, and it can't be ruined by the terrible work done by Coomer and also the attacks on his fellow Republicans. If you want to know what happened, you can just read this, and I'm telling you, this is with footnotes, 219 pages, so you can get through this pretty quick. I tried to keep this. I have to say, honestly, I left a lot out, largely because I wanted to make this as readable as possible. And I try to do it the way I would a case in showing you, and therefore it only takes part of the Biden allegations, but the ones that I thought you could use in a racketeering case against him. And I had developed this. I developed this before the hard drive, and then I add the hard drive to it. But I read the hard drive, unlike you know who. Useless endeavor. And the attacks on fellow Republicans are disgraceful. It's just a way of alibying. So there's a dispute over the cancer cure. I don't know what that exactly is between Elon and Sam Altman. Of course, I much prefer Elon to Sam Altman. And my interest in this $500 billion Stargate thing really has more to do with the development of artificial intelligence and our staying ahead of Russia and China. Largely because of the warning in Gordon Chang's book, which I recommend as opposed to the one I just trashed, which is the Tech War with China. It's the book before the most recent book of Gordon's, which is also excellent, and it's really about the design. The current one, Red Plan, is about the current designs of Xi Jinping. I have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen. It's important to read, particularly in this age of propaganda and brainwashing, because you got to be able to have your own ability and sources of where you look for information. So that's why that's why I think you should come to us, because whatever we do, there's no agenda. We just tell you the truth. Now, I can be wrong in my analysis, and I could even be wrong, and maybe something that I think is true isn't, but then I'll tell you. But unlike these other people, I don't have an agenda. When I say these other people, I don't mean there aren't other podcasters and commentators that are as good or better than me. There are. And some that are as honest, maybe more. But I'm one of them. So you should have a couple of them in your repertoire of gathering news. To do it now, probably the people that watch this show and that watch Wendell TV and those of us who are on X and places like that understand this, but the day of getting it from the newspapers is over. Now, I read the newspapers because I have to, but if I didn't have the time to do it or I didn't have the necessity to do it, I'd probably get my information off the internet nowadays. And I do think if you have a choice and you only can do one, it's going to be more accurate if you set up your own little network of things that you consult to find out what's going on. Because if you limit yourself to the network news, which is now a dwindling group of people who do that, or to the establishment newspapers, they have become fictional. They're not even close to tell you what's going on. And I think more and more people understand that. And I think they're not going to be here 5-10 years from now. I think they'll be gone. But in order to work your way through this, you got to be able to develop your own thinking. And that's why I try to suggest these books and try to make them, the books that'll fit into your time schedule, and also try to give you different sets of viewpoints. But this artificial intelligence war is worth looking at, and it's worth looking at much bigger than just whatever objections Elon has to Altman, which may Altman has always been a critic of us and our movement, and Elon has become a great champion of it. But I do want to see as much money into artificial intelligence as possible so that we stay ahead of the Chinese, because I think Gordon's warning that the next war is going to be won by whoever wins the war of artificial intelligence may be very close to totally accurate. I don't know that I've ever seen a more freakish bishop than the one in the District of Columbia for the Episcopal Church. She took a 70-year-old tradition of the National Prayer Service and turned it into a radical political diatribe. Embarrassing. And you know what the liar says? She says, the giveaway is she went on The View, right? The View and Rachel Madcow. A bishop? Right. This is a religious message? This is not a political hack. And here's what she says. I don't know where she said this. Where did she say this? Well, I'll read it to you. She confirmed late Tuesday that she meant the service as a one-on-one conversation with the president. I was looking at the president because I was speaking to him. Well, there were just about 20 to 30 million people listening in. Would you miss that, Bishop? He ordained you. Can they unordain you or something? Why don't you go out and just become a crazy activist? Carry around signs and paint your face, and it might not be a bad idea if you painted your face, come to think of it. You're all scary looking, too. I mean, she's scary looking. I'm sorry, but to me, she's scary looking. She looks like those bishops who were burning witches,
And Mayor, I know we've given Senator Amy Klobuchar some positive reviews for her work as part of the inaugural organizing committee. Well, not us as in you and me, but I
never said anything positive about it.
So we haven't,
other than the fact that she pointed out how disgracefully horrible the election machines were in Kilchain, which she now will never repeat. And Kilchain the people who did Kilchain have disappeared into the Russian gulag.
So strike that from the record. Let's start over. Amy Klobuchar comes from Minnesota. She was in charge of organizing some of these inaugural events and ceremonies. This pastor comes from Minnesota. She was a pastor in Minnesota for 20 years before coming to DC. So I've been
pastor.
So I'm trying. Well, bishop. Sorry, I'm probably getting the terminology.
Religions anymore? These things.
I actually don't. I don't know. Episcopalian has a lot of I mean, there's a relatively large Episcopalian population in America, correct?
Wow. Do you know how many they get on Sunday now?
I have no clue.
Yeah, 400,000. They're down to nothing.
Yeah, so you're right. That is down to nothing.
They're down to nothing. They have lost about 70 to 80%.
Wow.
Since the time of John Kennedy. I don't know why they used him as the Catholic. They're down 70%.
Wow.
They're disappearing as a church.
Why is the national church a Episcopalian
church? Originally, that's the religion that created the First Amendment. That's the Church of England.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So why do we have a First Amendment? I mean, people think we have a First Amendment because nobody should talk about God. Has nothing to do with that. Otherwise, they wouldn't have government can't interfere in the free exercise of religion. Conservative justices have now prevailed and pointed out there are two parts to the First Amendment. One is there will not be the establishment of a state religion, right?
Right.
And you cannot interfere with the free exercise of religion. What does that establishment of a state religion mean? It doesn't mean you can't pray in school. It
Right.
doesn't mean you can't have a crucifix or a Jewish star or
Right.
doesn't mean that. It means that the Church of England will not be the official church of the United States of America, like it's the official church of our former parent and subjugator, the King of England. The King of England is the head of the Church of England.
Right.
That's kind of strange. What the hell is a king being the head of a church for? And the original head of the Church of England was a murderer and an adulterer. And so, Bishop, I'd be a little humble when we start talking about, all this stuff. I mean, you come from a religion founded by a guy who chopped his wife's head off. Sorry, I know everybody's gonna get mad at me for that one. But it's just the same thing with Muhammad. Muhammad was a mass murderer. Sorry. Remember I tell you the truth?
Nobody can.
The head of the Anglican Church is the King of England. Nobody else. When he gets when what's his name was made king, Mr. Climate Change was made king, he was anointed as the head of the Church of England. So Charlie's the head of the Church of England. Now I got to be more respectful because I love Queen Elizabeth, and she did confer an honorary knighthood on me. But I have no regard for monarchy at all. I'm a pure American, and I think monarchy is for shit. I think it's a stupid added expense to like Denmark. Another reason we should take Greenland from them is Greenland shouldn't have to pay for those stupid kings or whatever the hell they have. They don't do shit. And they are completely alien to those of us who are libertarian. And if you're an American, I don't mean libertarian like the libertarian movement. I mean libertarian like it was meant in this 18th and 19th century. Liberal was a great thing to be in the 19th century. Maybe even a good part of the 20th century. The monarchy of England, I would concede, should remain because it's part of the tradition of England and it doesn't interfere in any way in democracy. I would say that. But some of these smaller countries, I don't know why they still have these kings and queens there. I mean, it's up to them. It shouldn't be up to me. The only point I want to make is I'm not a great monarchist. Otherwise, I wouldn't be an American. I'd go live in one of those stupid places. This is the best place to live by far, without any doubt, particularly now that it's been liberated. And it's really heading for untold glories. China, you better just give up. You're not going to keep up with us. Your system, although it can create false sense of progress, is deteriorating your people, destroying your people. It's the reason why you got to steal everything, because you're not creative. Because you were brought up in a dictatorship where you're told what to think. You get people like me and lots of people like me and like you who can think for themselves. We got some people that can't think in this country. I just illustrated one. But we got a lot of people who can. And we think that, the more thinking and the more debate and the more freedom of speech, the better off we're going to be. For which, whatever you want to say about Elon Musk, I'll always be very, very grateful to him. Because I think at a critical time in American history, he saved free speech. And I think he'll be known for that. And as I said about George W. Bush, who at a critical time in America fought back the way we had to fight back right after the attack of September 11th, after bin Laden, was used to, the Democrats was used to, he'd bomb an American ship, kill American sailors, and Clinton would bomb an empty field. When Bush hit him back and he ended up in a cave he never came out of, he didn't know what happened to him. Never recovered from it. Big difference. And for that, George W. Bush has my eternal gratitude. You can't forget people's contributions. Very few make contributions. Oh, Biden was president for 4 years, and all he contributed was people dying. So is this bishop going to be removed? I don't really care. But here's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see the Internal or External Revenue Service, whatever it's going to be named, take away their tax deduction. Why the hell should her church have a tax deduction? You get a tax reduction because you're a church. It's supposed to be taken away if you blatantly participate in politics. Now, you got to have a little scope for a church overlapping into politics a little bit, because some of the issues are moral issues. Like when churches want to debate abortion, they have every right to debate it as murder or not murder. I mean, the whole idea of murder comes from the Bible, right? Of its being prohibited, comes from the Ten Commandments. Right on the wall of the Justice Department, you'll see the great lawmakers include Moses and Hammurabi, and because one of the great foundations of law are the Ten Commandments. Sorry, that's not religion, that's history. Oh, we don't have history anymore. But they should lose their tax deduction. Now, remember, you have a case against her going back to 2020 when she basically told people they shouldn't vote for Trump. What's a bishop doing telling people they shouldn't vote for Trump? That's not political activism? That's not using the pulpit for political purpose? Tax deduction gone, at least for the National Cathedral. And I don't know, the head of the damn church wouldn't say anything. They just kept his mouth shut. The head, whatever they call him. I mean, the real head is the King of England, but the head of the church in America, he had no comment. That's a really brave guy. Brave bishop, brave, nice bishop, brave. You keep your mouth shut when your bishop becomes a left-wing Marxist political activist, huh? Good to note. Maybe that's why you're down to 400,000 people every Sunday in your church. If you have 400,000 people, I doubt it. I see Episcopalian churches getting closed all the time. The ones in New York are being used as nightclubs. I absolutely love what my friend Marco Rubio did right away. American facilities, one flag. The one in back of me, one flag. Two exceptions. You may be allowed to fly below it the prisoner of war missing in action flag or the wrongful detainees flag. Okay? That's it. But the American flag sits up there all by its lonesome, all by itself, no screwing around. You don't have that anymore. That is our embassy building or consulate, I'm not sure. Believe it or not, in a communist country or below a communist country, South Korea. And we got a Black Lives Matter flag up. So we have a flag up for an organization that believes in killing cops and also believes in Marxism. Self-acknowledged, very proud of it. They believe in destroying the traditional family of father and mother. They think fathers are useless. Mothers, we should take the kids away at 2 years old, which comes from Karl Marx. They believe in defunding the police, but they believe in killing the police too. Remember every rally? Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. You don't think that leads to the large increase in the number of police officers who have been murdered because of Black Lives Matter? Don't get taken up by the slogan. I also object to the slogan. We shouldn't be doing this. Lives matter because of the color of your skin. Like hell they do. Lives matter because lives matter. God created all of us. Our lives matter. Sure, it doesn't matter to the ones who slaughter 7 and 8 and 9 month babies in the millions. organization should be working on why more children in Harlem, black children, were aborted than born. Maybe you should change that. Instead of picking on the police that have almost infinitesimal a number of murders compared to you're murdering each other. Non-racist face that. You know why they face it? Because they love people. And they're interested in realistically saving life. They're interested in they're interested in the lesbian movement. They're interested in the communist movement. And they're interested in killing police officers. Otherwise, you wouldn't go around saying what I just said. Simple. And on an American facility, we got kill police officers. That's what they stand for. Now, the one above is, fine. But why should that flag be there as opposed to 10,000 other symbols? That's why there should be only one flag, the American flag. Otherwise, we start to get into an endless debate. I mean, why shouldn't the Knights of Columbus be able to put up their flag? I mean, that would get Cackling Kamala all upset because she thinks the Knights of Columbus are a terrorist organization. Why can't I have my Knights of Columbus up there? What about the Gaelic Band and Cultural Society? Maybe they should have their flag up, right. Or the Anti-Defamation League. They should have a big flag up there. That's why it gets ridiculous. Those flags they honor. The American flag they burn. Screw them. One flag. Thank you, Marco. You just earned your salary for this week.
Right?
Now the next thing you do is you got to overthrow the Ayatollah. Okay? You do that one, you'd be the greatest Secretary of State ever.
Can you imagine?
Here, the bishop said it was intended as a one-on-one conversation with the president.
What?
Here's a one-on-one with the president. Looks like she's afraid to talk to him. Cowardly witch.
I don't understand.
It was a one-on-one conversation with the president. That's just a big lie.
Right.
I mean, she's there. First of all, there must have been 1,000 people in the church.
Right.
That's what it takes away. I mean, even visually, something should have said something to this liar that this is not a one-on-one conversation. And why does a bishop get to lie her way out of political activism by saying it was a one-on-one conversation? She's just a damn liar. I don't care if she's a bishop. She shouldn't be a bishop anymore. The head of that church should remove her. She belongs on a picket line.
How does she say it's one? She's literally preaching in front of a crowd of people.
By the way,
more than one person.
I know some of the things I say suggest that I'm a very, very devout Roman Catholic. I'm not. I am a Roman Catholic, and I'm proud of it. But I'm not very, very devout. And I don't think the Archbishop, I don't think the Cardinal in Washington is much better.
Don't say that, Mayor.
Why?
Say you're not
the guy.
Don't say you're not devout. I'm saying.
Oh,
I know a lot of Catholics, and I'll just say this on your behalf, Mayor.
Religion, but
you talk about God, you bring it up much more.
Well, let's talk about
most people in my life.
The Cardinal who urged people not to vote for Trump. Maybe somebody should look at their tax deduction too. Maybe St. Matthew's and the National Cathedral. Pay taxes, damn it. You don't respect, render to Caesar that which is Caesar's, and to God that which is God, because you get your big mouths into politics. So you want to get your big mouths into politics, pay up. Pay up. Come on, Catholic bishop. You got a fortune. Well, maybe not so much after all the money you had to pay out for the last cardinal you had there, or the one before. Ooh, remember him. Maybe a little humility, Cardinal. A little less criticism of a president. Maybe a little humility, given what you've gone through. A little humility for the Episcopalian Church, founded by a murderer and adulterer. I think so. A little humility. Queens is begging President Trump to save him from the Democrats in New York that they voted for. But he's going to do it anyway, and he should. because there's a strip in Astoria. Not Astoria. It's on Roosevelt Avenue. That'd be more like, well, it starts in Astoria, but it ends up really at Citi Field, right? And Ted and I took a trip along that, and it wasn't as active that day as it usually is, but it has a name. I've forgotten the name, but here's what the name connotes. It's filled with illegal aliens. They've taken it over. They've made it into a large number of brothels, a large number of drug establishments, so bad that the barbershops have had to close because the druggies somehow congregate in front of the barbershops. I don't know why, but they like to congregate in front of the barbershops and nobody can get their hair cut anymore. Now, most of these people, if you look at them, don't get their hair cut. They look dirty as hell. And this is all, recent, based on Hochul and Adams welcoming him into New York like they could get more benefits here than any place else. Adams, I go back and forth with, but one of the horrible things that he did is to make New York into an uber sanctuary city, where he not only was protecting them against the federal government, he's giving them money, giving them a credit card. And then he wonders why he's got so many. So the people there are saying, no, nobody's going to help us, the people we vote for. So President Trump, can you help us? One barber shop just closed down because 50 homeless people were sitting out front every day. Every day. The Roosevelt Avenue corridor is filled with dozens of, they call them migrants, I call them aliens, which is now the official way to refer to them, by the way, because it's in the law. Gee, we're going to refer to the law? Wow. Drug dealing, harassment, theft, sexual assaults, littering, public urination, probably public defecation too. So here's an answer. This is in the Eastern District of New York, not the Southern, which I was the U.S. attorney. When I became a U.S. attorney in 1983, I went to visit all the public officials that I could, that were responsible, which aren't a lot. So it wasn't a lot of people I had to visit. The honest ones. It was a small number. And I visited Ed Koch and Congressman Green. I think Green had run against Koch, actually. Green was a Republican congressman. We used to have those one day at one time in Manhattan. And Green was a very good congressman. And Koch was at times a very good mayor. And they both had the same thing they wanted me to do. They wanted me to help the city crack down on the drug addicts. And for some reason, they both picked Alphabet City, where there was open drug dealing. Alphabet City is the traditional Lower East Side, where many of the Irish, Italian, and Jewish immigrants started. And it turned into a outdoor drug market where people would walk up to a old apartment, the dealer would be there, they'd buy it. Sometimes the cars would pull up, and then they'd get arrested and they'd be back in 2 to 3 hours. The arrest usually took the amount of time it took for the judges, who were wildly left-wing, including the father of the now head of the Democratic Party in Manhattan, let him loose, Bruce Wright. His son is now the head of the Democratic. So you can imagine what we get with the Democratic Party. Well, you've seen it with the judges that they have. So what I did was, once a week, I prevailed on the Drug Enforcement Administration to go down to the Lower East Side and arrest everybody. And when the new police commissioner was appointed by the mayor, the new police commissioner was dead set against it. He had the old-fashioned attitude that the feds just want publicity. And I said, let me talk to him, Mr. Mayor. And I did. And he said, I'll give you a try. All of a sudden, and we became good friends. It became the police and the DEA arresting once a week. We never tell you the day. Here's the difference. If you got arrested and you went into the left-wing communist courts of New York, the Democratic, what would you call it? Oligarchy of New York, the Democratic dictatorship in New York, you're out in 2 hours, maybe 3. They used to call it turnstile justice. It really wasn't. Turnstiles take longer. And basically, if they took too long, the drug dealers would complain to their lawyers because time is money. So they'd get arrested. They'd be back in 3 hours. The drug dealing was over the top. It was just when crack was coming in. And also, it convinced the local citizens that the police were corrupt because they didn't realize the police weren't putting them back. The crazy left-wing Democrat judges who got appointed by at that time, crooked Democrat county leaders, I eventually put them in jail. So you know what used to happen? So let's say we'd pick a Tuesday, and we'd flood it with police and DEA. They come to federal court. Next time they saw the street was anywhere from 2 to 10 years later. We actually had bribery cases that came out of that because the drug dealers, sometimes the bosses had come out and they'd offer the policeman or the agent, like, here's 10 grand if you come back tomorrow and arrest him. And take him into federal court. Here's 10 grand. So the cop would take the 10 grand and arrest him. And then we'd get the head of the organization as well. That convinced me, that gave me the prototype of what I was going to do as mayor when I ad seriatim, one at a time, wiped it out. I started then with the northern Brooklyn. And then we moved all throughout the city and did the best we could to wipe out the drug dealers. End result, we reduced homicide, overall crime by more than any mayor in the history of New York or any place else. And left behind a city that was the complete opposite of the city that I was given. And you can do it. The U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District of New York should focus on that Roosevelt corridor and go arrest all those bums. See how fast it stops. And then maybe the city would back up the U.S. Attorney and give them resources to focus on that area. And then here's the key. And this is why I rejected the first plan that Bratton gave me for how to do narcotics and drug enforcement, because I knew it better than him. Sorry, Bill. I had a lot more experience in law enforcement than you did. And you didn't have the brains. Maple did. So I rejected it because they were going to do a big show. Going to wipe it out in Brooklyn, and they had music and all kinds of crap. And I said, no. Reject it. I want a plan that takes me through every part of New York, from beginning to end. Yeah, we'll start in Brooklyn. Then where do we go next? Because they're going to go somewhere next. And then where do we go next? And we have a CompStat system that, despite what all the people who hate me say, I developed with Ed Maple, not Bratton. It was the combination of my knowledge of FBI crime statistics that I used to be in charge of, and his brilliant idea of tracking crime in the 7 or 8 transit police stations, never envisioning that it could be done for 77 police precincts, which I envisioned. And even though I didn't know much about computers, then realized we could do because of computers and put them on computers. But in any event, that's what they can do. Start with that. You know how that would lift morale? You need, when you're trying to turn around a very big problem, you need some success to fuel the rest of the effort. That's why I got rid of the squeegee men. That's why I did the drug program the way I told you. Start one place, move to the next one, move to the next one. And then you went on to bigger challenges. But you go on to bigger challenges with a lot more trust in you and a lot more morale. And the police, all of a sudden, that were pushed around for years, like they have been now, all of a sudden are having great success. And then they invent their own success. They start inventing things and doing things you never thought about. Just like failure builds on itself. And when it goes rolling down the hill, the snowball gets bigger and bigger. I don't know if you can come up with a similar analogy going up the hill, but the reality is success is built on success. And I guess if it is a Chinese saying, I think it is, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. But you got to do that single step first. So I say, listen to the people of Queens and tell your U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of New York, once a week, put your resources there and pull everybody out and stick them in federal prison. See what happens. Oh, and by the way, just ask Tom Homan to get rid of all the illegals. He will. And you can say about the sanctuary laws in New York, shove them up your. And by the way, despite what they say and Adams having real problems with, I don't know if I could comply, they're illegal. Did you ever read the Supremacy Clause of the United States Constitution? Federal law trumps state law. We fought a civil war over it. I heard some legal commentator who will not be mentioned because I like him kind of, but doesn't seem to know that. The Lincoln Riley bill is going to Trump's desk.
Good.
Boy, that never would have happened. And anyway, it would have been the Lincoln Riley bill if Dodo was still there, right?
Yeah, the football coach for a college team, Lincoln Riley.
I'm telling you, he should be prosecuted. Should not get away with it. And let him say he can't stand trial because he's incompetent. That'd be great. And probably I'd have to agree with that. Doesn't mean you shouldn't make the case on him, so everybody knows that it's true. So they did raids yesterday in Boston, Denver, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Seattle, Washington, and Miami. They have 700,000 illegal aliens that they have on a list that have committed serious crimes in the U.S. And many of them are in sanctuary cities that will not help. Most of those are probably sanctuary. Denver is a big sanctuary city. Apparently, the mayor was not standing at the gate of the city when they went in, and as Tom Homan was hoping, I think Tom wanted to arrest him. But every one of those is a left-wing, nut job, high-crime Democrat city, except for one. Boston, Denver, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Seattle, Washington, D.C., and Miami is not. But of course, Miami is sitting in a place where you're going to just have a large number of illegals and should get the help, even though I do not believe Miami is a sanctuary city. I would seriously doubt it. Also, just all in one day, Trump ordered the Border Patrol to stop releasing illegal immigrants. Imagine having to tell the Border Patrol to stop releasing illegal immigrants. So now when you come in, you're going to get pushed back into Mexico, or you have to stay there, or you're going to go to, I'm sorry, not jail, detention. You're going to go to a detention center. I built a few. If they want help, I can show them how to build a few. They're also going to remove the ban on arresting illegals or grabbing illegals in churches. That just ended 800 years ago. Religious sanctuary. Probably about the time that Henry VIII took over the church. Geez, he looted all the monasteries and churches. He shouldn't have any sanctuary. He took all their money because he was claiming that it was his money. That's what it's really about, as well as marrying Anne Boleyn. He got tired of the old lady. He was the head. He's the head of the church. Started it. No wonder she's a little wacky, huh? So they're going to remove the ban on arresting people in courthouses, churches, and just about every place else. Boston, they got 8 migrants, including a Haitian gang member who was arrested with 18 others and shouted out, "F Trump, Biden forever." Oh, and Biden invited him in. They're all, I refer to all these murderers, rapists, and child molesters as Biden invitees. Sex offender Edward Marlon Rauda Alnada of El Salvador was arrested in Maryland. Jose Barco Chirino of Venezuela was arrested for attempted murder that he's been convicted of, extreme indifference, and felony menacing. Miguel Andres Mateo of Guatemala, now he was arrested for driving under the influence, but he was ordered removed from the United States. How about this? In 2014. And he's been hanging around committing crimes since then. Hodar Mazhidov, 22, Tajik national. See, we get them from all over. Beating up a police officer, reckless driving, and reckless endangerment of a human being. And that's in Philadelphia, the wonderful Philadelphia, where the DA now says he's going to arrest the federal agents for violating their sanctuary laws. Now, you want to know who that DA is? That DA was the first of the Soros traitors who became DAs, Krasner, in a city where he has the distinction of presiding over the largest number of homicides in the history of the city. Why the hell they reelected him, God bless you, people in New York are just as crazy, or Chicago. Krasner is a criminal. He dismisses all the police cases. The police have refused to cooperate with him. I don't know what they do now. He's gotten people murdered there in numbers never heard of before. Seattle, which I don't even know in Seattle if people can think straight with all the drugs going around in the air. But Vittorio Hernandez, well, he got arrested. Sexual abuse of minors. Yeah, Trump was making this all up. You're gonna see about within the next year about 1 million of these people. 1 million. Making it up. And that stupid make-believe bishop lecturing him about immigration and not caring about these people who were killed, raped, the children who were unaccounted for. What the hell are you, a witch? Nobody's talking about legal immigrants. And this group that came over by illegal invitation of our criminal president are much more disproportionately criminal than ever before. 60% of the crime about 2 months ago in Queens were by the Biden invitees and the people, Bishop, you're defending. Why don't you go defend it on Roosevelt Avenue? You miserable excuse for a religious leader, faux bishop, and real Marxist. In Miami, they arrested a group of people living in Martin County, Florida, who had rap sheets including battery, child abuse, fraud, attacking police officers, trespassing, and vandalism. We're preparing to send 10,000 troops to the border. They're going to be over quick, a lot quicker than you think. I don't know. I showed you that group that they just pointed in the other direction when they came over the border right back to Mexico. And if I were the president of Mexico, ma'am, I would suggest you better cooperate. You can't exist without us economically. And we should squeeze you until you stop having fentanyl come over to this country, working with the Chinese communists who are basically getting a twofer out of it. They're killing Americans, which is like conducting a war against us. And they're killing us in the hundreds of thousands with fentanyl. And they're making billions. Usually if you have a war, they have to die too. Here, we die and they become rich. Because you, lady president, cooperate with the cartels. Well, that's going to end. I guarantee you that will end. There was a big new wildfire in California where the state and city government couldn't do a damn thing about it because they don't have water in their fire hydrants. Is that real? And people vote for them. This one was like almost like a flash fire, but it destroyed 10,000 acres like in a jiff. It went nuclear, they say. So this hasn't ended yet. They're hoping for rain over the weekend. I suggest that Newscomb do some kind of dance. Obviously, he doesn't want to divert the water because I want to kill the smell or interfere with that flower. Well, on the earlier show, we covered the president at Davos. So I think we'll just mention it. It was brilliant. And the best part was when he told off, and I happen to like Moynihan, the head of Bank of America, but they do conspire against conservatives. Not just his bank, a lot of the banks do. I know. Not only that, what I have against the Bank of America is they cooperated with the FBI in turning over all their customers so the FBI could figure out what Republicans were in Washington on January 6th, so they could torture us. And to focus on the very, very few of them that hurt a police officer, and not the very large number of them who didn't do a damn thing and were framed, is a disgrace. Yeah. And the National Organization of Chiefs of Police should be ashamed of themselves. It's just a knee-jerk union reaction of the worst kind. I'm sorry, not every cop is perfect. Most are, not every. And there was something seriously wrong that day with the Capitol Police, including the guy who murdered Ashley Babbitt, who's gotten away with it. And that should end. That guy is a damn first-degree murderer running around, covered up by Pelosi, the crooked J6 committee, miserable Cheney, disgusting Pelosi. They all know he committed murder. I knew it at 6 o'clock at night on January 6th. And the crooked U.S. attorney in the District of Columbia covered it up. And the DA, the FBI, and that entire crooked committee that got a pardon. When does a congressional committee get a pardon if they didn't do something seriously wrong? Tokyo Rose Cheney? Well, let's show a little of the president, and then we'll sign off for the night, and I'll try to get my voice back.
Speaking of you, and you've done a fantastic job, but I hope you start opening your bank to conservatives, because many conservatives complain that the banks are not allowing them to do business within the bank, and that included a place called Bank of America. They don't take conservative business. And I don't know if the regulators mandated that because of Biden or what, but you and Jamie and everybody, I hope you're going to open your banks to conservatives, because what you're doing is wrong.
Boy,
Mr. President, I'll say that
he takes care of his people. Takes care of his people. Everything he's promised, he's done. Obviously, he can't do all of it in 2 days. He's done most of it. Thank God. Well, pray for the people of Ukraine. I think relief is coming real soon. He really laid it into Putin, didn't he? He told Putin that we're going to strangle you with sanctions if you don't stop, and we can do that. I mean, you have no idea what we can do with sanctions when you have a president rather than a traitor in the White House who claimed to do sanctions but then never enforced them. And as I said, the one Russian he didn't sanction is the one who bribed him. And pray for the people of Israel. Let's hope we can build on this faulty agreement, a very, very flawed agreement, really, is what I should say. But let's hope that we can convert that into some real peace if the Hamas and the Palestinians understand what's going to happen to them. And then let's not forget Iran and get the Ayatollah the hell out of there. Pray for the people of Iran too, and Israel. And once again, every day I think of this administration when I say, God bless America and thank God. It's a prayer of thanksgiving that God has helped us have the wisdom to deliver ourselves from tyranny, which is what Trump is doing for us. God bless America. We'll see you tomorrow night. It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze,